When people talk about the history of medicine, ancient Africa almost never comes up. Think about it. What pops into your head when you hear African medicine? Superstition, primitive practices, tribal rituals. For a long time, that's been the popular narrative. But what if I told you that in 1879, deep in the heart of Africa, a surgeon, yes, a surgeon, performed a cesarean section that was in almost every measurable way not only safer, but more advanced than anything happening in London or Paris at the time? This wasn't a myth. It is a well-documented historical event that completely flips our understanding of medical history. It forces us to ask, what did pre-colonial African medicine really look like? Picture this. The year is 1879 and the location is Kahura in the ancient Kingdom of Bunyoro, present-day Uganda. A young British medical student from the prestigious Edinburgh University by the name of Robert W. Felkin is visiting, and he is about to witness a cesarean section from a local African surgical team. The patient is a young, healthy woman having her first baby. The operation begins with meticulous preparation. The woman was laid on a wooden bed covered with cowhide and given a generous amount of banana wine. This potent local brew acted as a powerful anesthetic, putting her in a semi-intoxicated state to dull the pain and prevent shock. But the wine had a dual purpose. It was also used as an antiseptic. The surgeon carefully washed his hands and the patient's abdomen, first with the wine and then with water, cleansing the area before the first cut. A step that was decades ahead of European surgeons who were still operating with unwashed hands. The surgery was not a solo act but a highly coordinated team effort. Assistants gently but firmly secured the patient to the bed with bands of bark cloth, while another held her ankles and a third steadied her abdomen. Then, just before the first cut, the surgeon paused. He lifted his knife, whispered a chant, and ended with a sharp cry. From outside, the entire community answered with a unified shout. This act was a powerful symbol of their worldview, that physical, spiritual, and community well-being are all tied together and you can't heal one without the other. It was a confident community placing their trust in a master of his craft. Back to the surgery. It was fast, precise, and followed clear steps, showing that this was not the first time it was being performed. With a large curved knife, the surgeon made a swift midline cut through the abdominal and uterine walls. Upon incision, the amniotic fluid was released and an assistant immediately stopped any bleeding by applying a red hot iron. Felkin noted that this technique, called cauterization, was used with incredible precision to avoid damaging healthy tissue. An assistant held the abdominal walls apart, allowing the surgeon to reach in, lift the edges of the uterine wall, and quickly deliver the baby. The umbilical cord was cut, and the newborn was passed to another team member for care. Now, here is where the African surgeons showed their true genius. In Europe, surgeons would try to stitch the uterus close, a practice that almost always led to fatal infection. The Ugandan surgeon did the opposite. He massaged the uterus firmly to make it shrink naturally. This stopped the bleeding. Then he reached through the wound and used his fingers to open the cervix from the inside, creating a natural drainage path for the fluids after the operation. The closure was just as ingenious. To prevent peritonitis, the deadly infection caused by trapped fluid, the team gently turned the patient over and thoroughly drained the fluid from the entire abdominal cavity. The wound was then brought together and secured with 17 iron spikes. These weren't crude spikes, but well-made surgical tools that looked like acupressure needles. Finally, they applied a natural medicine to the wound. An assistant chewed roots from two plants thought to be combrentum and tamarindus to make a thick antiseptic paste. They spread this on the wound and then covered it with a warm banana leaf and a tight bandage. The recovery, as recorded by Robert Felkin, was nothing short of miraculous for the era. The woman was comfortable within an hour and was breastfeeding her newborn just 2 hours after the surgery. The iron pin were removed gradually over 6 days, and by the 11th day, the wound was entirely healed. This story reveals a highly advanced surgical system, proving it was anything but primitive. The healers had mastered the era's greatest challenges of controlling pain, stopping bleeding, and preventing infection by combining a deep hands-on knowledge of the human body with clever tools and medicines made from local plants and materials. Now, let's go to Europe. To fully appreciate the significance of the 1879 Kahura C-section, it is essential to place it in direct comparison with the state of European obstetrics at the same historical moment. In the later half of the 19th century, undergoing a C-section in Europe was as good as a death sentence. The procedure was dreaded by patients and surgeons alike, reserved only for the most desperate of circumstances, and carried appallingly high maternal mortality rates. Historical data from influential figures like Dr. Robert P. Harris showed that the C-section mortality rate in the 1870s and 1880s was approaching 75% or higher in Europe. One particularly grim statistic cited by the US National Library of Medicine asserts that not a single woman survived a cesarean section in Paris in the 90-year period between 1787 and 1876. The culprits were the surgeons themselves. Mind you, this was a period when germ theory was not accepted in Europe. Doctors and medical students would begin their day performing autopsies on women who had died from postpartum infection. They would then move directly to the maternity ward to perform internal examination on pregnant women in labor without washing their hands. They would then move from one patient to the next, examining them all with the same unwashed hands, effectively transmitting infectious material from the dead and the sick to the healthy. These doctors did all this in their street clothes, inadvertently introducing deadly microbes, leading to rampant fatal infections like peritonitis and septicemia. They also failed to control internal bleeding, and even when they did, stitching the womb was still fatal. In an age before antibiotics and knowledge of germs, the stitches simply sealed bacteria inside the body, guaranteeing a fatal outcome. This timeline is what makes the Ugandan surgery so profound. At that moment, European surgeons failed to solve the three main problems of a C-section: infection, hemorrhage, and proper uterine management. The Kahura surgeons used banana wine as an antiseptic to prevent infection. They controlled bleeding with proactive cauterization and prevented post-op complications by massaging the uterus and ensuring natural drainage, preventing the buildup of deadly septic fluid. The successful, well-managed procedure in 1879 occurred before European medicine had widely adopted the two breakthroughs that would finally make the operation safe: proper antisepsis and reliable uterine suturing techniques. This account from Uganda serves as a powerful reminder that sophisticated medical knowledge is not the domain of any single culture. Long before the solutions were standardized in the West, These surgeons had already created their own answer, proving that the history of medicine has always been and will always be a truly global story. Alright, that's it for this video. If you found this helpful and interesting, please consider liking and subscribing. Every single interaction helps this channel grow and tells YouTube to share this content with more people. Thank you so much and see you in the next topic.